Hey everyone, I'm super excited to welcome you to this special edition of the S4HQ blog today. I have a dear friend of mine who is also a quality improvement expert. This guy's fresh off winning some national awards for his leadership in quality improvement. My friend and colleague, Khalil Hassam. Khalil, it's the beginning of 2022. Do you happen to have a favorite improvement you've done over the last year?
Yeah, for sure. So I just moved jobs within the same building, but I went down a floor. And going back and forth in the office and virtual and COVID, I really didn't have the chance to 5S my desk over the past 18 months. And so I'm excited to say I was a guy who used to hoard pens because at work, the inventory management wasn't quite good, and you always had to really hold tight onto them. You never knew when you were going to get another one. And so it was really just like inventory management problems galore. But I'm in a new place, and I've now 5S myself down to 2 pens. I've got one black, one blue. I've got one, lonely pen holder that's got my 2 things in there. And it's pretty easy. I look in there, and if there's not 2 pens, it's pretty easy visual control to see it's empty. I know where my blue pen is. I know where my black pen is. I'm spending less time every day over processing, looking through 14 pens and 6 highlighters and 1 used up pencil. So I really trying to find the energy and time to 5S my desk.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I can relate with that one a lot. 2020, I feel like I spent a lot of time 5Sing my virtual space, my file folders, my spreadsheets and things. And 2021, mine has been the cabling on my desk, and so I finally got that. I moved, so that was my kind of real space 5S project. Although my favorite improvement project has to be one I did recently. So my son, I help get his breakfast going in the mornings, and he likes frozen waffles from Trader Joe's. And what we did is, he would eat one, and then he would say, I want another one. And then you have a 4-minute downtime in between his waffles. So I kind of instituted a little pull system where, using various racks, when he says he wants that other waffle, I have one already half done, ready to go. And if it's on that lowest rack and he's like, no, I don't want another one, you can refreeze it. So that has been my little QI project to make my mornings a little smoother.
Love that.
So today we're going to be talking about, I think, what is a really fun and interesting topic. So many people have all these checklists and to-do lists, and these are the things you got to do for your quality improvement project. But today we are talking about the to-don't list. Forget about all the books and all of the courses and certifications and all that. When folks say that quality improvement doesn't work for me, chances are one of the things that we're going to talk about happened in their project. So this is the QI meme to-don't list, aka why QI projects fail. All right, so ready to jump right in?
I'm ready.
Awesome. So our first one here, the quality is top priority. And then we have the manager just spraying that hose of busy work, of urgent firefighting at the staff that's trying to do QI. Khalil, what are your hot takes on this one?
Oh man, this is just, I love the lip service to quality, right? Quality is our top priority, but they're not practicing prioritization themselves. They think that quality is about something other than it really is. They're focused on output and not really, oh, don't worry about rework, don't worry about defects. We'll solve that problem later. Just get it done. Let's push through. No time for evaluation. And then they wonder why people are unhappy, and they wonder why they're dealing with problems and customer complaints at the end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this one, it's hard to, this one is right up there. It's one of, I think, the most important, having that strategic vision from the top, the knowledge, the commitment, the involvement, not just paying the lip service. Quality improvement, it does start at grassroots, but it really is multi-directional. And without that support, it's these projects that have the best of intentions are just doomed to fail. They're going to just end up, 10th on a long to-do list. All right, moving on to our next one. So this one, we have the crowded lecture hall, and this is feels like the kickoff meeting. And then all of a sudden we get to the actual time when it comes to do the work, who's filling out their tools, who's doing tests, who's going to that Gemba. and you have this empty hall of a few people. And this one really is strikes home for me for my Greenbelt project, man. I saw senior leadership, I saw directors of operations, and they were all there and talking about how they were champions and they were support this, and this was a strategic imperative for the organization. And then when it actually came time to do the work, there was like 2 people, right? So cool. Any thoughts on this one? Has this ever happened to you?
Has, unfortunately, and it's just like the evaporative effect. It's terrible. I don't know whether it's better to have these folks reappear and stand with you and claim success alongside you. That in and of itself is sort of painful, but also an acknowledgement that they're still tied in, or whether it's worse to just have no one with you as you cross the finish line, like silently at night by yourself. Which would you rather take, Justin?
Honestly, I'd rather have the folks there, and I think it comes to when you start these projects, there has to be the training, the education, picking the right staff to invest in. So the project I referenced, that was the problem. Is like we picked people that were like, oh, I just want another thing to put on my resume, and they had no intention of ever doing this project. And when the leadership is like there for the first meeting, and then they don't see that happening, this is kind of those environments where it's tough to really have that transformative quality experience.
Yeah, I think you see this a lot in organizations that are trying on quality for the first couple of times, and maybe they've done it in sort of pockets here and there, and then there's an enterprise level intention to do quality improvement, and so the leadership is there. But as we think about failure, blaming the process and not the person, if we treat that leader just as any other potential quality improvement advocate, they don't have the right space and the right support to engage, right? They're pulled into 16 different directions. They're fighting fires. Someone is telling them, hey, quality is your top priority. And then they're getting hit with that busy work hose. So it just goes to show, prioritization and strategic planning is critical at every step of the enterprise.
Absolutely. Yeah, those first 2 are definitely related. All right, moving on to our next one. And this is a classic meme here, roll safe. The data can't be wrong if you don't have any data. Tell me a little bit about your, what not to do when it comes to performance measurement and metric selection.
Oh my God, just make assumptions about everything. Oh yeah, we had data from 2014 about why our customers are not engaging in care. Or, oh, it's because Billy, the institutional brick who's been here for 15 years and has seen everything, said that that's the way it is. And not to discount, individual experience, right? The experiential side of quality, but you have to A, be living with current data, and B, find the confirmation. What is that? Justin, I know you love to say, find the intersection of technical and experiential quality. The experiences that we can confirm with data, that's where we need to live. And all too often, we're just making assumptions about poor data. We take that into our project planning, and you're almost guaranteed to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having the IT infrastructure is difficult. So if you don't have it like going into the project, and your project hinges on a new data system, on creating new measures from scratch, on upgrading, it can be done. I'm not going to say it can't be done if all the other pieces are there, but it just makes it so much harder. So, don't start a project if you can't collect the data, or the data has questionable accuracy, or you don't have a system that is going to allow you to analyze the data. I think like also there's a cultural piece here too. I think of like Deming's 14 points on management, and that the data can't live in a culture of fear. And like if people are worried about like, oh, my goal was 81%, and really we're at 78, but there's these valid reasons. You're going to make that, you're going to fudge the numbers to make it 81, or, you say, oh, we can't collect it, or it's just, yeah.
On this tip, Justin, you reminded me of something that a friend of mine just told me. She's releasing an RFA, and I thought this was brilliant. Taking her lessons learned to thinking about scaling and adapting successes. From previous RFAs and from working with grantees, she had noticed that there wasn't enough time and space and resources dedicated to data collection, right? You're asking your partners to collect novel data because it's a pilot and we need to move in this or that direction. But are we stopping and pausing and allowing the resources and time for changing EMRs or for improving office data collection? And so in the RFA that she's getting ready to release, there's going to be a 3 or 4 month period, and that's going to be year one. And you have to pass a phase gate to show. So there's going to be time and money and staff allowed to ensure that you can collect all the data that's required in the RFA. And that's going to be a phase gate to move into year two. So I thought that was really moving, really putting your money where your mouth is. Because otherwise, like you said, you're going to get some questionable data, or it's going to be complete, but you don't know how the sausage got made. You're going to try and take that data into your decision making, and then 5 years from now, you're going to wonder. So these are the types of moments that can haunt you for the next decade if you don't do it right. That's my takeaway on this one.
Yeah, well said. All right, so this next one, yeah, this is one I can definitely relate to. You have teams that are excited. They're following the best practice. They have this super creative, evidence-informed invention that they saw at a conference that they're like, we can create that. And to me, this one kind of speaks to the adapters versus the adopters. And we got to make sure that these interventions are adapted faithfully, but also that they make sense in context of our local environment, our local processes, our staff culture. We see this girl here trying to trace this cat, and she's going to have this like perfect cat. And I'm sure in her head, she envisions it's going to look, like just beautifully shaded, just like the real deal. And when she gets done, she has just, a stick figure that is probably worse than what she could have drawn had she not used the real cat as the template. And I feel like this, this one happens a lot when we especially in organizations that are they kind of had the motto proudly invented elsewhere, that they don't look enough internally, they don't rely enough on the internal team's skills to try and do something that's unique and addresses their root causes. Instead, they're like, hey, how do we implement this $1 million research project as another duty assigned with no money, and not listening to the voice of our customers? And then this is inevitably what you end up with. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think this is going to get into something I'm sure we're going to discuss in another meeting, but it's about quality is using your brain and not your wallet. And so, hey, we found this great thing that works in insert city here, or insert state here, insert country, and we're just going to bring it home. And it's going to require a bunch of resources. It ends up those don't ever materialize. And if you had just looked at adapting your base processes, we're using Excel right now and we want to invest in this crazy expensive population health. Well, just, with the time and energy that you're going to spend trying to resource something bigger, work with what you got and see how far you can go with your brain in the next, cycle one. What can you do by next Tuesday, the Tuesday after that? And I'm sure we're going to talk about that in another call, so I'll save my thoughts there. Yeah,
excellent point. I think you really hit the nail on the head there, because sure, if you have a lack of resources, you don't have the financial, technical, human resources to do these, innovative things, they're not going to be successful. And that's actually where you burn people out. And instead of doing, like you talk about, a small iterative quick win to just get their beaks wet, give them a taste, and then, invest the resources when you have a better idea of what you're doing. All right, our next one here, the project communication plan is telepathy.
I'm going to let you take this one first, because I got sort of a mid-project stream thought on this one.
Okay. So yeah, I think poor communication is what kills many quality improvement project that has the best of intentions. It would be great if we were all telepaths, and the data that I know is the data that you know. I know all the same experiences. I have the same point of view, but it's communication really is everything. And to paraphrase just to pretty much straight up quote one of my favorite quotes about communication is being clear is being kind. And so if we're kind of unclear, we don't say what we mean, or we think we said it, but we don't get that confirmation and close the loop, your QI project is going to suffer.
Think about have you ever had the experience where you've joined a project midstream, Justin?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And it's like, where's the documentation? Oh yeah, like Director Bob talked about it all in the first meeting. Well, I wasn't there. Oh, see, other Director Sally, and she's not available and doesn't have the time, or oh, it's written here somewhere, and she's shuffling through 6 inches of paper on her desk. It's the assumption that sort of information is out there and someone else will take care of you. But if it's not written, you're basically diluting and playing telephone from person to person to person. And I see the best intended projects that have a great team, as soon as there's any attrition in team members because someone moved on to another project or another company, that's really when things fall apart. I can't stress enough the importance of just taking those few minutes to document your projects. And spoiler alert, it's going to help you when you go back to do evaluation at the end of the project or on an ongoing basis. When you do your wrap-up evaluation, life will be a lot easier. This is the gift that you give yourself.
Well, I'm glad you brought the conversation down that road, because there's a lot of research that has actually shown exactly what you talked about. People leave, and right now, I think turnover is especially high in public health and healthcare. There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of just wanting to change lanes, change pace. And basically, it's been shown when you have a project that's already late, when you add more people to it, you make it even later. And it's exactly the reason that you talked about, those getting folks up to speed that need to feel like, oh, I'm brought into this, I need to jump in right away. Just those lines of communication. I was on a project a couple of years ago where the groups were 9 people, and you think of all the lines of communication that I could have 8 different each one of us could have 8 different conversations just internally in that group. And then we had stakeholders, and then we had different managers that we reported to. So this one group that was a kind of a subset of a larger project, the lines of communication were out of control. There was no way that there was ever going to be successful because no one ever knew what was going on. All right, moving on to our next one. So this one here, we have this kid. He's a QI project team. And they were talking about the steps to quality improvement, and there's the define phase, the measure phase, the analyze phase, and this kid just says, skipping straight to solution. So tell me your thoughts on solutioning, Khalil.
This is like the adolescent version of quality improvement, where you're just so eager and hot to jump into solutioning, which is really the last 10% of a project, quite honestly. If you've done your DMAI, you've done your define, measure, and analyze, you're 80 to 90% of the way through the project. Why did your solutioning not work? Why did it work for 10 minutes and then broke down on the side of the highway? Because you didn't really define the problem. And I see this all too often of people who have wonderful intentions, absolutely the best of intentions, but haven't done this enough so that by the time that they've done their third, you and I have learned this, you do 3 or 4 of these quality improvement projects where you jump right into solutioning after 1 day of root cause analysis. You're like, all right, I found it. I'm going to cure cancer now. And then you really end up nowhere.
Yeah, and I will be honest, I have fallen into this trap before, and knowing very well that, okay, this is, QI is rooted in a scientific method. We want to be patient. We want to take a rational approach. But in my experience, why it happened, even I knew it was happening and I couldn't stop it, because basically I could go to, leadership and say, hey, give me 4 hours a week of, the best and brightest folks here. And all I want to do is talk about what's causing the problem, right? And the leader was like, hey, I want you to come to me with solutions, not problems. And if it sounds like it's going to make sense, then I'll give you. I just want to jump to something right now. So I think there's a lot of pressure on leaders to be decisive, to be proactive, to have an answer to everything that's every challenge. And unfortunately, that's not an environment which quality improvement thrives in.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that, Justin. We can talk about this on another call, teaser for another conversation we'll be having. But I just implemented a survey, a culture survey from my team. And I intentionally did not bring the I'm comfortable bringing, solutions to my manager. We left it at just problems, right? Are you comfortable just bringing problems to your manager, to me? Because if your team can't do that and they always feel like they need to jump right into solutions, then you're missing the experience that your team member is going to give you. I think it's one of those things where you develop that, over a time of training and encouragement, you can create that culture where people are able to independently or with their colleagues at the subject matter expert, the folks who are on the front line doing the work, doing the root cause analysis and the measurement and the analysis, the improvement and the controlling, and then they're filling you in at that high level. But if you're just expecting, if you're too busy as a manager to understand and go through root cause analysis and problem defining with your team, then you have a failure process, quite honestly.
Excellent. That's well said. All right, so moving on to our next one here, the galaxy brain, another meme I'm pretty partial to. So this one I think is talking about the selection and use of QI tools and kind of that evolution of our QI journey. And that, when people complain about problems and not using QI, like that's the kind of where some folks start, and we want to move them beyond. And then you kind of take that first try at a QI project, and you're maybe doing something, you're addressing a problem, you're filling out a worksheet, you're using those 3 tools, that run chart and fishbone diagram that you've learned, and okay, that's everything I need for a QI project. And then, you kind of get a little bit better, and you understand that methodology and how the defined approach works, and you have a few basic tools and you're actually documenting. But I think the problem is kind of people at brain 2 and 3 expect the kind of the results that our galaxy brain gets there. And there really is a little bit more that goes into it. Having that high level understanding is only going to get you so far. And it's not until you're really working through all the tools, which ones to pick, you have the right people doing them, you're collecting the right data to fill them out, that you're gonna see the kind of return you're looking for. Any thoughts on this one, Khalil?
Yeah, I think so. For the record, if anyone out here is looking at this and thinking, "Man, I'm not at that 4th stage," I've been doing this for a dozen years, and I'm still somewhere between 3 and 4 myself. But I think I was probably at phase 1 for a couple of years. I was Mr. PDSA for about 2 or 3 years, longer than I probably want to admit, because I hadn't yet discovered lean. And then once you get out of that terrible PDSA everything phase of life, and for some of us that lasts longer than others, you really start to move to 3 and to 4. And it's like chasing nirvana. You will, I don't think, ever get there. Your skills of knowing exactly which tool to implement and when, and no matter how much training you've been through, no matter how many belts you have, it's always an iterative process. There is no such thing as perfection when it comes to quality. Even as a facilitator, as a coach, you're iteratively improving your process. You're meeting people that you've never met before and seeing new problems, and the solutions you tried yesterday are still adaptable, but you're not adapting them wholesale to the folks you're meeting, today. True.
So Khalil, thinking back on your journey and the kind of the work you're doing now, what tips would you give to either QI leads or managers who want to fast track their people from 1 and 2 to 3 and 4?
Oh, there's 2 things. One, find a highly qualified, experienced expert in your field to come do coaching and or belts. And you can't do it by mail order, I'll tell you that, right? Going to insert institution here, no matter how prestigious or how inexpensive or how expensive, is not a replacement for someone that understands your workflow and your process, be that government or private sector or nonprofit, wherever you may be. And the second is get into lean and forget about Six Sigma. I'm talking about personal level lean. Understand and live how to practice lean. Lean is how you do the dishes. It's how you drive to work. It's how you make breakfast and waffles for your son. This is the way to practice quality. When you start doing it 24/7, you're going to get your 10,000 hours a lot quicker than if you do it 2 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah, excellent advice. And I would just echo both things you said. Maybe add one more thing, a real simple one. I found that when you move from doing the old aim statement to a more formal project charter and start planning out the use of tools, start thinking about the selection and the phases and who you need at the table, that really moves teams far beyond very fast. All right, our next one here. So this one is getting into the kind of the lack of understanding of what patients, what customers, what stakeholders value in the process. A lot of times we see here, the mandate. Oh, we have this survey that we're required to do. We want to improve patient satisfaction. We want to have the highest scores. and our QI project didn't work. And you get kind of the same old answers, like, well, do another survey, use a different tool, or at this time pay people to take the tool. But when you hear the idea of like kind of loosening the cloak, looking behind the curtain a little bit, and letting patients into your QI process and really engaging them as equals in a co-design process, yeah, like those are the people that get thrown out the window. So what are your thoughts on this one, Khalil?
You could just call this one lip service 101, right?
Yeah.
This is, oh, HRSA asked us to do it, or our funder, or it's like sort of the topic du jour. And it's tough. I've come from that healthcare clinical space where you have a lot of hesitations because you may be dealing with some really vulnerable folks, and you may think, these are not the people whose experience I want, but that's not coming from a place of humility. Those are exactly the people whose experience you want. There is no one who understands better their experience in engaging in care than them. And so, you can create structure and to find the right folks, talk to them, talk to the people on the front lines who are doing the work, who may know people who are unhappy or people who are really satisfied. You want to find a good mix. But if you can harness every ounce of humility that you have, you're more likely to be successful here. As much as I'm not a physician, I'm not a clinician, but when you're sort of steeped in that space, it's easy to, by osmosis, carry some of that paternalistic model of medicine. And the best thing I ever did here, actually, was talk to a couple of folks who had lived experience, the same lived experience that the population that we were trying to engage, and got some stern talking to, got some pep talk, and got a framework to engage people in co-designed quality management measures, on customer experience, on wait times, on all this stuff. This was probably like 7 years ago. So shout out to those folks. They know who they are.
Yeah, I think, when we talked earlier about how tough it can be to get the right data, get good data, and sometimes like it's not about a survey, it's not about a measure, it's about talking to people. It's about taking 15 minutes and just like hearing people's stories. So I think that's, when you can able to engage patients as like equals, as true equals, they're just going to help you make context and sense of what their peers really value. And it's such like a cheat code to doing QI. It really is. And it is an upfront investment. It is like, can be scary to get started, but using that experience based co-design process, it incorporates the voice of the patient like throughout everything. It just is going to lead to so much more robust projects.
If you're having hesitation, the last thought I want to offer you, whoever's listening, is think about the principles of quality improvement. It's cycle one. You may not have faith that the solution that's being identified by your partner in this project, someone who has lived experience with seeking care at your clinic or seeking services at your business, you may not believe strongly in the solution they've identified. But don't forget about cycle one, right? You're going to pilot this, and you're going to see whether or not it's successful. You're going to adapt it. You're going to scale up, or you're going to abandon the project, right? Have faith, and it's a way to develop the people that you're working with or working for, your customers eventually.
Excellent advice. All right, our last one here. So this one, we have the guy that he's a project, and he's just pouring that huge jar of time and resources on this regular size problem. And I think I've seen this happen more than once. Just the ineffective planning and project management just can derail a QI project. Khalil, your thoughts on this one?
I think about this from another perspective, coming from the healthcare space, where we had a measure on there for a couple of years of gonorrhea, chlamydia screening and syphilis screening, and we were 99% or 98% for like 2 years. Why do we even spend time on it? Why were we talking about this and talking about that 1 or 2 customers every year when we weren't really prioritizing the high yield opportunities in front of us? So the encouragement here is take a step back, step out of your body and say, what are we actually doing? You know, how much juice can we squeeze out of this project? Let alone how much time and resources, but let's look at all the activities that we're doing. Is this still valuable to us today? It was important to us 5 years ago, but are you still, if you're still doing those, like if you're still doing the same things you were doing 5 years ago, the same way you were doing them, you know, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, it's really time for some strong evaluation.
Right. Yeah. There's no tragedy worse than being really efficient at doing the wrong things, right? Like things that aren't a priority anymore, things that problems we've already solved, and dedicating more time to them. Absolutely agree. I think like no matter how good your ideas are, know how strong your team is, how well they know the subject matter, that if you can't get through the workflow and you can't do it in a timely manner, it's unfortunately it's doomed to fail. I think it's, as we talked about a little bit earlier, it's about a journey through iteration instead of like reaching that destination and like maintaining there forever, right?
Yeah. It's like the parabolic curve.
Mm-hmm.
How much more juice are you going to get out of, you know, putting more time and energy into that one last customer? Where do you really need to be spending your time? Think about that.
Yeah, diminishing returns. It's like trying to eat one more Twizzler after that first one tastes so delicious, but by the fourth one, I mean, what's the point? So what would you say for this one, the teams that struggle a little bit with prioritization and project management, what advice would you have for them?
I actually say get a coach.
Get a coach.
You need some outside objective perspective on what you're doing. And especially if you're that quality person or you're that leader, as a friend of ours likes to say, you can't be a prophet in your own land sometimes. And getting someone else to come in and to give you an objective assessment, and you may not enjoy hearing what it is because you may not be ready to be faced. If you and your team have been doing the same things you've been doing for a long time, it can be a tough pill to swallow. But get someone who can come in and really understand and business process map, see where the opportunities and strengths are, and share back that information with you in a way that you can understand. I think the role of a coach here is invaluable. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I totally, again, I agree with a little bit of bias, but I would say, like, you know, picking the right coach, the type of techniques you're probably looking for here are someone who is familiar with team huddles, someone who knows visibility boards, someone who knows with prioritizing value instead of, you know, making a lovely Gantt chart that is going to go off the rails in that first missed deadline. So again, I think that's some of having a dedicated individual that can worry about all that stuff so your team can do what they do really well is going to help you avoid this pitfall. All right, that was a lot of fun.
I had a blast. Thanks for having me, Justin.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Khalil. That was really great. You know, we kind of got through the whole list of the to-don't list, and I really, for those of you watching and listening, like, again, you know, look back at your previous projects and see which one of these your team has fallen for. And again, just trying to eliminate a few of these is going to pay a lot more dividends to get started than kind of do all this other stuff. Any last words, Khalil?
It's a long journey. There is no destination. You know, wake up every morning with that smile and that tenacity to improve one thing. And you're gonna last a long time. Don't burn out.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And you know, I hope you enjoyed this. We definitely had some fun with it. If you have other ideas for other topics you want to see, if you want to dive into any of these 10 to don'ts any further, you know, like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments. And thanks again for